I was a great believer in Obama when he got elected. I think you were as well. I was very enthusiastic about him.
I had my hopes up when the Reverend Wright tape came out. I started getting a little more hopeful, frankly. But I'm quite convinced he was. And I now believe that he was never sitting in those pews, and that he did not hear that.
But I think about it all the time, because for me, it was a real turning point, because George Bush was very similar to Trump in a lot of ways, like appointed these incompetents to run everything in Washington, these fools. And here comes Obama. I had met Obama. He was a professor at the University of Chicago, where I went to graduate school, very intelligent. And he brought in a cabinet of people much like him, very intelligent people. Hell, the president of Harvard, Larry Summers,
right?
And these very, very intelligent people proceeded to continue the bailout policies of the Bush administration, and to do all the other, all the sort of half measures that he did, to deliver this version of universal health care that's really no universal health care at all,
right?
And not do anything about Wall Street. Inequality continues. Everything continues. Deindustrialization. He doesn't, the trade agreements. He doesn't do anything. And for me, that is a huge point, an inflection point, where you have to ask yourself as a liberal, what is this? Why do these? And I think I finally brought it to an answer with this new book, that this form of liberalism is about elites making decisions for us. It is about, the highly educated, coming together in a cabinet like Obama and sitting around a table and agreeing with one another and coming to consensus decisions with one another. And it doesn't work. And what does work, and here I'm completely flipping the 1950s script, what does work is populism. What works is mass movements of working class people in the street. What works is things like the Farmers Alliance, the Populist Party, the CIO in the 1930s, the Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s. Enormous protest movements of working class people organized explicitly around issues of concern to working class people. That works. That gets results.
Well, I mean, it's but short-lived in some way, right?
The labor movement still exists, Sam. These guys it's still out there. It just is. It has no energy. It has no vital spark anymore, but we all know why it's there and what its role should be, and that it should be growing by leaps and bounds. These things are all out there simmering under the surface. You saw Black Lives Matter, 100,000 people in the streets. This is extraordinary. Now, it's not a populist movement per se yet, because it's not about the economic issues. Populism is focused, zoomed in on the economic issues, but Black Lives Matter could become that. It could happen very quickly, and if it did, it would be unstoppable.
I mean, I think we end up on the same place, and there was one point, I guess I don't think I've ever named who said this to me, but I might as well just say it now. He's so out of politics now. But at one point I got invited to Elliot Spitzer's, one of his Christmas parties. I have a feeling they had multiple ones. When I was going to be a regular on his CNN show before that fell.
I was on his show a lot. By the way, he was one of the very few that was interested in what I was saying.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, is that I think, it's unfortunate, because he very much, I think, was, I suspect FDR was very much a model that he was following. I mean, FDR was, he wasn't the technocrat necessarily that Obama was, but, and I remember distinctly asking him, and this must have been about 2010. We were at this Christmas party, and so he was a little bit drunk, and I think he was a little bit looser than he would have been. I certainly was.
Watch out, Mr. Seder.
And I said, why is he pivoting to austerity? And
you meaning Obama?
Obama. And because that was really
that was the moment. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
he embraced, what was it called? The grand bargain. Oh my God.
Right. I mean,
did that make me mad? Oh.
He had shown himself a little bit when he wouldn't do the cram down in 2009. But
the stimulus package was way too small. Do you remember that?
Way too small. Yes, it was.
And he had opportunity in his hands.
Yes.
And
there was a huge wasted opportunity.
Yeah.
And I asked him, and Spitzer shared this same frustration. I mean, he would have, and he said he has surrounded himself with people and he thinks they know what they're talking about. And he said, and Spitzer said this to me, I'll never forget. He goes, I know these people. I went to Princeton with them and they were all C students and they cheated at tennis. And I just thought, like, this is a class traitor.
Yeah.
That I'm here with. Yeah. I mean, he still has the accoutrements. Awesome. And but this is a guy who, because he grew up with these people, realizes that they are full of shit. Excuse me. And
are you allowed to say that on the TV?
I am. Yeah. You're not. No, of course. Yeah, you can. But that he is full. That they are full of shit. In that Obama, he said, I think something to the effect of, like, because he grew up, sort of fighting to get into that class, did not realize, he thought that they deserved to be there.
Yeah. It's a very typical attitude of someone who has succeeded by dint of educational, Obama's real smart, did well on his tests, went to Columbia, went to Harvard Law, like Clinton before him had, been trained to think of the meritocracy as legitimate. Yes. This is the great fallacy of our era.
Because it worked for him.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's, you let a couple of people up and they
but that's one of the great things about Roosevelt. I mean, you brought up Franklin Roosevelt, and one of the lessons that I take from the 30s that I always repeat to people, because nobody is aware of this, they look back at Roosevelt as the beginning of government by expert, but it wasn't really. Had he really appointed the Larry Summerses of his day, the leading authorities on economics, his administration would have been the Hoover administration. It would have the same crap. The economists of his day signed these joint letters. You know how they love to do this, like 230 economists demand. They did this denouncing Roosevelt and denouncing the New Deal. The orthodox economics of the 1930s absolutely despised Franklin Roosevelt, as did the orthodox lawyers of the time. This is the anti-populist hysteria of the 1930s that I write about in the book. This, by the way, this hysteria, we didn't get to talk about this, but this hysteria recurs throughout American history. You have episodes of hysteria. And the one in the 1930s is particularly fascinating. All these corporation attorneys, and you see the rise of the first great right-wing front group. It was called the American Liberty League, funded by the DuPont family and a couple other very, very wealthy families. And they had more money than the Republican Party in 1936. And they would put on the speakers on national radio hookups, editorials in the newspapers, et cetera, often denouncing the New Deal constantly, but often on really racist grounds. Because it was allowing people to succeed who did not deserve to succeed. Why did they not deserve to succeed? Because they were from poor stock. They were at the bottom because they were supposed to be at the bottom, in this sort of social Darwinist view of the world. Really extraordinary stuff. And what's funny is that anybody, like the DuPont family, these are intelligent people, that anybody thought this is how you win an election in America. They got this, they went down to this crushing defeat, outspending Roosevelt by an enormous margin. All the newspapers in America are on the side of the Republican candidate, Alf Landon, and he loses. He only won 2 states in 1936.
But in some ways, they've won now. Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
they've learned. So the right wingers learned, the sort of descendants of the DuPont, of that effort, the Koch brothers and stuff like that, have learned you don't attack people by saying, get back in your place. That's not how you respond. You respond by saying, the way Reagan did, the way Trump did, I am your friend. I am, a man of the people. I have this folksy attitude, look at my unvarnished way of speaking, and then you pass the Paul Ryan tax cuts, or in Reagan's case, the 81 tax cut. And meanwhile, the Democrats have, in their folly, in their incredible ongoing 30 years in running folly, have decided that the way to fight back is to really double down on identifying themselves with the white collar educated elite and the wealthy suburbs and this kind of thing. Oh my God. I think they're going to win this fall, by the way. I think Biden deserves to win and will win. I mean, because this man, his screw ups are just unimaginable at this point.